People have always looked to the sky. They have watched birds with envy. For thousands of years, the dream of flight was just that, a dream. It lived in myths and stories. But dreams can slowly become plans. They can turn into drawings and theories. The first real steps toward the airplane were not taken with wood and cloth, but with paper and ink. A man in England, Sir George Cayley, was a true visionary. Around the year 1799, he carved a small silver disc. On it, he engraved the forces of flight: lift, drag, thrust. He understood that a flying machine needed a fixed wing for lift and a separate system for power. This was a revolutionary idea. Cayley's work was the foundation. He sketched designs for gliders and powered aircraft. He was born in 1773 and lived until 1857. He understood that the problem of flight was not one of simple flapping. It was a problem of engineering. As he once wrote, "The whole problem is confined within these limits, viz. to make a surface support a given weight by the application of power to the resistance of air." His ideas were published, but they did not immediately lead to a working airplane. The world was not yet ready. The materials were too heavy. The engines did not exist. But Cayley had planted a seed. He had defined the challenge. The world was busy with steam engines and railroads. The sky remained the domain of birds and balloons. Balloons could float, but they could not be steered with precision. They were at the mercy of the wind. A true flying machine needed to be controlled. It needed to go where the pilot wanted it to go. Cayley's vision was for a machine that was heavier than air, one that could conquer the wind, not just ride it. His work was a quiet promise. It was a message sent to a future generation of builders and dreamers. The path forward was not straight. Many tried and failed. Some built machines with flapping wings called ornithopters. Beautiful, but impractical. They mimicked the form of a bird, but not the true principle of its flight. The secret was not in the flapping. It was in the shape of the wing and in airflow creating lift. Cayley had understood this, but it would take another bold pioneer, decades later, to truly test the idea in the air. In the late 19th century, a German engineer picked up where Cayley left off. His name was Otto Lilienthal. He was not just a theorist, he was a man of action. Lilienthal believed that to learn to fly, one must fly. He did not start with power. He focused on control, building beautiful gliders from willow wood and cotton fabric, resembling the wings of a great bird. He would take his gliders to a hill near Berlin, run into the wind until his feet left the ground. For a few precious seconds, he was flying. Lilienthal made over 2,000 successful glider flights. Each flight taught him something new. He learned to shift his body weight to steer, much like a modern hang glider pilot. He kept meticulous records and photographs. His work was public and discussed worldwide. He became known as the Glider King, inspiring a new generation, including two brothers in Dayton, Ohio. He believed a small, lightweight engine on a proven glider was the final piece. In August 1896, a gust stalled his glider. He fell about 50 feet and broke his spine. His final words were reportedly, "Sacrifices must be made." He died the next day, but his data, photographs, and bravery provided the crucial next step. While Lilienthal was gliding in Germany, Samuel Pierpont Langley, head of the Smithsonian, pursued power with a government grant of $50,000. In 1896, he launched two large steam-powered unmanned aerodromes. They flew over half a mile and landed in the Potomac River. Buoyant, he scaled up to the man-carrying Great Aerodrome, a fragile tandem-wing craft with a custom gasoline engine to be catapulted from a houseboat. He thought control could be solved once airborne. The pilot, Charles Manley, was an engineer, not an experienced aviator. October 7, 1903, the Great Aerodrome was flung from the catapult. Its wings snagged, it plunged straight down like a handful of mortar, a reporter wrote. December 8, 1903, 9 days before a more famous flight. The rear wings collapsed on launch. It flipped into icy water, briefly trapping Manley. Public ridicule followed. Funding was cut. Meanwhile, Wilbur and Orville Wright, bicycle mechanics, believed control was the key. They had no grants, only their own profits, hands, and minds. In 1899, they requested all flight information. They studied Cayley and Lilienthal and learned from Octave Chanute, who became their mentor and friend. The Wrights started with a kite, not an engine. The Wright brothers understood that a successful airplane needed to be controlled in 3 dimensions: pitch up and down, yaw left and right, roll tilting side to side. Lilienthal had shifted his body. Not practical for power, they needed a mechanical system. Watching birds and twisting an empty bicycle inner tube box sparked an idea. They realized they could control roll by warping the wings, changing lift on each side to bank and turn. They sought strong, steady winds. The U.S. Weather Bureau pointed them to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Kitty Hawk, isolated, windy, with soft sand for landings. In autumn 1900, they arrived with a biplane glider of 17-foot wingspan. They flew it mostly as a kite, with a man aboard learning the controls. The glider produced less lift than predicted, but wing warping showed promise. It was a start. They returned in 1901 with a much larger glider. It flew poorly, was difficult to control, and still lacked lift. At one point, Wilbur told Orville, "Not within 1,000 years would man ever fly." But they did not give up. Back in Dayton, they built a wind tunnel and in the winter of 1901 to 02, tested over 200 miniature wing designs, measuring lift and drag. Armed with reliable data, they built the 1902 glider, the first fully controllable aircraft, adding a movable rear rudder linked to wing warping for smooth, balanced turns. After their triumph with the 1902 glider, the Wrights returned to Dayton to create a powered airplane. With Charlie Taylor, they built a small 4-cylinder engine producing about 12 horsepower. They designed and hand-carved their own propellers, realizing a propeller is essentially a wing that turns. Their efficiency calculations were remarkably accurate. They assembled the Wright Flyer and shipped it to Kitty Hawk in late 1903. Weather was terrible. A propeller shaft broke. Orville returned to Dayton to make a new one. On December 14th, a coin toss put Wilbur first. The Flyer climbed too steeply, stalled, and settled into the sand with minor damage. 2 days later, Thursday, December 17th, the air was cold with winds over 20 miles per hour. Only 5 people from the life-saving station watched. It was Orville's turn. At 10:35 a.m., he lay flat on the lower wing, released the restraining wire, the Flyer rolled down its 60-foot track and lifted into the air. It bucked as he wrestled the sensitive elevator, but stayed airborne for 12 seconds, covering 120 feet, shorter than a jumbo jet's wingspan, but a true, powered, controlled, sustained flight. They made 3 more flights. On the 4th, Wilbur flew 59 seconds for 852 feet. Afterward, a gust tumbled the Flyer, damaging it, but the secret of the sky was unlocked. The news of the Wrights' success made little splash. A few papers ran inaccuracies. The brothers stayed quiet, seeking patents and contracts. In Paris, Alberto Santos-Dumont, already famous for steerable airships, captured imaginations. On October 23, 1906, nearly 3 years after Kitty Hawk, he flew the 14 BIs before a large crowd and official observers. A canard biplane with the tail in front, it lifted under its own power, flew about 200 feet, and landed safely. The first officially observed public-powered flight in Europe. Many hailed Santos-Dumont as the inventor of the airplane, especially in Europe and Brazil. The debate hinges on definitions: public flight, wheels, no launching rail or strong headwind. But the 14 bis was unstable and hard to control. The Wrights had solved 3-axis control in 1902. By late 1905 at Huffman Prairie, their Flyer 3 was truly practical. Taking off, flying as long as fuel lasted and landing safely. On October 5th, Wilbur flew over 39 minutes, about 24 miles. They then stopped flying for more than 2 years, seeking contracts. Skeptical officials relented only after spectacular public demonstrations in 1908. The events of December 17, 1903 were not the end of the story. They were the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. The quiet work of two brothers in a bicycle shop unleashed a cascade of change that reshaped the world. The line from that first 12-second flight to today is direct, a line across the sky to every airport on Earth. The principles of lift, propulsion, and control the Wrights mastered are the same that guide a massive Airbus A380 across the Atlantic. Their legacy is more than an invention. It is a method. They were patient, systematic. They trusted their own research when the books were wrong. They knew control mattered more than power. They worked as a team. Their story was not a single flash of genius, but years of hard work, disappointment, and quiet determination. As Wilbur reflected, the airplane is not the product of a day, but of 1,000 days. Today we take flight for granted, crossing continents, visiting family, gazing from 30,000 feet. Aerodynamic craft have even reached other planets. It began with Cayley's dream, Lilienthal's courage, and the Wrights' methodical genius. The persistent few gave humanity the gift of wings, written now in every contrail across the blue expanse.